Welcome to What's Up Punk, where we take a look at the myriad subgenres underneath the umbrella of punk. Today we'll be taking a look at Elfpunk. Rock on, you knife-eared punks. What is Elfpunk? We have the traditional Fey mythologies, folklore's obscure tales, ballads, and known figures were uprooted from their classic Celtic, Norse, Japanese, Slavic settings and dumped into the urban kingdoms of the 1980s and onward. That's Elfpunk. These stories are often dark and gritty and may feature rock bands, car racing, lost courts, and lots of teenage rebellion. They also don't have to play out in our world. My favorite example of Elfpunk is the Borderlands series. Nope, not that one. About a city that exists between the human reality and the Fey reality, and the shenanigans that happen there. On that segue, we got a bit of housekeeping to take care of. I'm going to assume most people's exposure to elves is The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings or something similar. Yeah, little thing. The elves being giant dicks in The Hobbit is the only time they actually act like elves.
But I don't get it. Why did you stray from the path?
Food! Starving to death! Can I please have some food?
I don't understand this. He's speaking some strange foreign language.
By Durin's Bane! Is that crown squeezing your head too tight or something?
Most times they act like a halfie, which is a hybrid between a human and an elf. That's a little pejorative. It's also not really their fault. Most, if not all, fake folklore really presses that they are not from the human plane. That the Summerlands, or whatever it's called, is so alien to human norm that it's a novelty. Elfpunk is a treasure trove of lost and hidden folklore that shines a light on some weird and wonderful things. Elfpunk has a few rules to follow to be Elfpunk. First, no vampires or werewolves, which is really refreshing, and before someone comes at me with an example, they're either using blood magic, cursed to be a stereotypical suckhead or lycan, or a shifter that either got stuck that way or just enjoys playing the bit. 2. The settings may have changed, but the Fae are still Fae, meaning don't ever under any circumstance give a Fae your real name, unless you want to be turned into Gurgi. Despite the immortal bodies, they are not outer gods, enough sustained trauma and they will go down. But it's best to use iron. And firstborns are a commodity.
Dane, did you service Oberon, King of the Fairies?
3. We are working with Fey folklore. That encompasses a lot, but not all mythologies. So Shadowrun with its minotaurs and vampire virus is out. Also no new creatures. Sorry Slendy, you actually worked fairly well as an excommunicated Fey. Wordplay intended. Technology. Contemporary, but sometimes augmented by magic. Oh boy, settle in, this is a trip. Okay, so magic is rarely plug and play. Generally there's some form of system to it. Colloquially known as a magic system, i.e. at the most simplistic, say the correct words in the correct order with the correct cadence, and boom, fireball. Yeah, elf magic don't work like that. There's power in a true name, and the general rules with governed Fae are still in play, the aforementioned iron, milk, four-leaf clovers, and their many applications, but the bigger stuff works on drama. Basically, would it be dramatic if magic worked right now or not? Also, augmented doesn't mean better, it just means augmented. Case in point, to get the most basic internet working in Border Town, it takes carrier pigeons, a series of lenses, and someone whispering sweet nothings to a fiber optic cable every few miles. It's crazy. Aesthetic. Punk, generally 80s punk, but that's whenever the setting is, mixed with more traditional fairy tale garb. So if a Clash or Mucus Membrane concert and a Celtic fair happen at the same time, actually that sounds like a hell of a scene. I'd buy a pint of microbrewed meat for some brownie bartender with 9 ear piercings on each ear, then go watch knights fight in the parking lot. Whole place smell like cloves, but I have a good time. Now that I think about it, I think that happened to me once at the Ritz in San Jose, minus the mead. But yeah, raves, clubs, concerts, abandoned factories, squat right next to enchanted orchards and forests. Elves in tunics wearing spider silk, and humans in the finest fibbery right next to an biker orc and a pixie drinking a martini glass she's bathing in. Where did Elfpunk start? The term Elfpunk got popularized in the 1980s and 1990s when there were some great rock and roll elf stories on the market. Emma Bull's War of the Oaks is classic Elfpunk, in which an 80s rock musician goes head-to-head with the Queen of the Fays in a battle of the bands. Okay, I don't know who time traveled and took a look at my Christmas list, but thank you. And the series that I love and I feel has done the most with Elfpunk, the Borderlands series. Okay, so if it's so awesome, why haven't I heard of it? Well, a lot of Elfpunk tropes were absorbed to what became the umbrella genre of urban fantasy in the 1980s, and the death nail that was Buffy the Vampire Slayer cemented the concepts that all folklore were real, so let's play with them all, took over the market, and that's continued to this day. Real life Elfpunks. So many Elfpunks on TikTok. It's honestly really fun. My recommendations. Going to be really honest with you punks, 90% of my research into this one was the 5th anthology Welcome to Bordertown, part of the Bordertown series. The audiobook version presented by Neil Gaiman specifically. That man just owns my audiobook library right now. That being said, I'm still very confident in my research. So with that said, welcome to Bordertown. Trish left home to seek her destiny on the border. For her, it was 13 days. For the outside world, it was 13 years. Yeah, reality kinda had a glitch, just roll with it. Now Bordertown is back. Her little brother Jimbo, all grown up, is ready to find out just what happened to his beloved sister and bring her home at last. But Trish has only just been here a few weeks. While the fantasy enthusiast Trish falls out of love with Bordertown, Mr. Fix-It Jimbo is falling in love. Their story is entangled with a Harvard scholar who is way too interested in the sex lives of True Bloods. Ah, the Kirk of it all. For these three individuals, their fate will be decided, and not everyone is going home. Shannons Law. Shannon Claude makes his way to the Bordertown, determined to bridge the worlds with his own kludge version of the internet, built from science and magic and uniquely border in nature. But if there's a will, there's a way, and someone's gotta do it. Remember that 13-year time gap? Bordertown kinda missed a good chunk of the early 2000s, so Shannon loaded up with all the tech and media he could and beelined it to the border, starting up his own internet provider. Made bank is sitting pretty, but his aspirations are larger and a bit more noble than you might think. What's all the coffee in Bordertown against being a legend? Incannabulum, a Puss in Boots story with a twist. Amnesia.
But in time, he becomes that person, so his lie becomes the truth, see? He transcends the mask. Well, don't you get it?
The life of a True Blood as he enters Bordertown. The only problem is that he can't remember a single thing about himself. A blank slate, or rather a blank page. It gets filled up as the story rambles along, as he gathers bits and pieces of himself, or creates some new pieces along the way. The Sages of Elsewhere. Wolfboy, a human that victim of the curse that makes him look like a werewolf, and a recurring character of the Borderland universe, is running Elsewhere books these days, and has acquired a very valuable volume that originated in the realm, and it communicates through Shakespeare quotes.
Shut your big fat mouth!
Certain other dealers and collectors want it very, very much. Should he make like a bookseller and sell the book? Maybe not. Depends on how much luck he needs. Sidebar. Wolfboy is awesome, and the little glimpses they give of his backstory really makes me want to check out the rest of the series. First of all, he has wolf vocal cords, and since he can't shift back to human, he spends his entire story mute. Going off of that, stuck as a giant werewolf, mute, he owns his own bookstore, is in a loving relationship, and is a brawler. Scoreboard Wolfboy. The Rowan Gentleman. It's the Scarlet Pimpernel if he was elven and even more like Batman. Should probably say more like Zorro, but then this reference would collapse in on itself and become a Nobia strip, and dude's got time for that. Thank you so much, Dominic Noble. If you hadn't made a video on the Scarlet Peppercini, this homage would have gone right over my head into space. Okay, moving on. Right. Forget the fact that I washed out the bad taste of MIB 3 for me with Mr. Smith, forgetting the fact that every quest needs to have a fight in either a mini-mart, 7-Eleven, gas station, or,
Gardens, electronic shops, antique stores, but only if they're classy.
That the makeup was on point, or that this is the closest we're ever going to get to a Shadowrun movie, is still a good cop movie about the relationship between a jaded older partner and a younger idealist that needs to prove himself to not only the Force, but his people, and to himself. Oh, and this. Just all this. Also, Machine Gun Kelly's song on this was fire. How do I feel about Elfpunk? It's okay. Oh, come on, you know this is my jam. Probably helps that I'm really in urban fantasy. The Nightside series, to this day, is the only book series I've ever completed. There's something compelling about how you can drop A Midsummer Night's Dream out of its time period and toss into, say, Chicago, and really don't need to modify that much, because the passions and emotions of it all are still relevant. I think relevancy is the big takeaway of Elfpunk. It's not Elfpunk, but the best example I can give is the grim episode Leave It to Beavers. Nope, no obvious joke there, moving on. What is the common zeitgeist on trolls? Bitches like bridges. In the fairy tale times, that was simply, you want to use the bridge, you gotta pay the troll. Okay, now as society advanced and bigger bridges and transportation of goods, what is the modern day equivalent? They became mob bosses and controlled the construction in Portland. Specifically bridges, but I think they diversified. Also, Holy Black and Alien Kush. Wait. I swear I didn't plan this. Man, you and Philip K. Dick's just all up in this channel. Matterpunk, Elfpunk, I'm calling it right now. If ever gets a Mythpunk, she's gonna pop up again. Anyway, Welcome to Border Town is just fun. Good editing, you two. As soon as I finish the stack of FNAF books I'm working through, I'm taking on some more anthologies from the border. I brought this point up earlier, but it's just so nice to have one mythology to deal with in an urban setting. As much as I love the Winchesters and Angel Investigations, it is really nice to know where the line is and have the line not be vampires, werewolves, or zombies. Because it highlights a mythology that is not as well known as the big three, but just as, if not more, dangerous. Vampires became these alluring creatures, but that's more of a literary evolution. The Fae were compelling and irresistible from the beginning, and I mean that in the oldest definition possible. The vampire hypno-eye is relatively a new gimmick, but full-blooded 100% uncut Fae had that from the get-go. In the right scenario, a human could not resist a Fae. What does an utterly inhuman creature need for humanity in a moral definition? Giving us a nice little reversal of something I've brought up in K-Punk and Biopunk, about how we can dehumanize people who have been modified. Now we have something utterly inhuman dehumanizing people because they're humans. Compared to the Fae, we are like mayflies, fleeting, ephemeral creatures who live out their whole lives in the course of a single day. What is a day to the infinitude of the Unseelie Court? Yes, I did steal that from Carl Sagan. If you're gonna steal from the best kids. Sign out question. If your back was against the wall, no other options left to you, about to die, could you bust a cap in an elf? Perforate a pixie? Tell Brownie to look at the flowers? Introduce a leprechaun to a luger? Honestly, for half a second, it would put me on my back foot. It's just so surreal when you really think about it, because on some level, depending on the species, I'd feel like I was flatlining Dobby. Orcs, trolls, trogs, I'd shoot them in the face and make a witty one-liner. Debt paid in full. Troll. One of the prettier or dopier looking ones? I'm not sure. It's a creature not just out of folklore or myth, but bedtime stories, and you're pointing a Glock at him. That's just surreal. However, it was specifically Peter Jackson's Legolas. I'd shoot him without even thinking about it twice. That's my 2 cents on the subject. Comment in the bottom and get a discussion going. Special thanks to Mini Boss in San Jose for letting us shoot there. He liked booze, classic arcade games, and the rare delicacy of the frozen north, poutine. Check him out. Not sponsored, just a fan. Thank you to Emily Ray, Julian Gutierrez, and Madam Fox for being my elves. It was a highlight in the oppressive boredom that was quarantine. Next time it'll be all tequila old fashions and Street Fighter. Socials in the description. Well, this has been What's Up, punks. Till next time, pick up a lascivious soul at an Alpha Centauri bar. with your wit and have them take you sightseeing. I bet the architecture is something to see. But keep on being a no-good, dirty punk.
You know it, you love it, here's the spiel, let's do it. Hit subscribe to be my subscriber. Hit the bell so you know when I've actually posted stuff. Still no idea why those two things are separate now, but whatever. And of course, hit like to appease the algorithm gods. All fear and praise. On a list of whatever YouTubes, I am also probably not going to get any ad revenue for these videos, so if you would be so kind, check out that Patreon and the GoFundMe. Links in the description.